All right, this is the video for section 1.1, part 2. All right, so in our last video, we talked about where data comes from, and we actually also talked about descriptive and inferential statistics. In this video, we're going to talk about our types of variables based on whether they are qualitative versus quantitative. And we're going to take a look and see, how can we tell the difference between these two? And then maybe in our next video, we'll even look at an example. All right, so as far as qualitative and quantitative, I'm definitely going to mark this as something that you really need to be able to just know, at least for this class, because there's going to be lots of times throughout the semester that we're going to want to identify, do we have qualitative or quantitative data? So these are two definitions that you really do want to focus on and understand the differences between them. All right, the next thing that our book got to, or the guided notes talked about, or one of the things that was there, was this idea of a variable versus data. And this isn't one of those things that, like, gosh, I need to have this memorized for life. But you do need to know that there is a difference between what we call a variable and then what we gather as data. And so I've got this table to use for the next few slides and things. And I found this online after a really quick search. I have no idea, who collected it or where it came from. I know it's about diamonds. And I know that we have, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 different variables. So these are variables. And variables are characteristics of the individuals in a population. So in this case, the individuals are diamonds, and the population would be all diamonds everywhere. Even though this is 1,000 entries, that's still just a sample. There are more than 1,000 diamonds in the world. So we have a sample of 1,000 diamonds in this, and now this is just a picture, so I've only got 1 through 10. But those are variables. So the carat, these are the 4 C's. If you don't really know what they are, you've probably heard that before. The 4 C's of a diamond: carat, cut, color, and clarity. Carat is actually a measurement of how much the diamond weighs. Cut is how is it cut, and then there's these different descriptions. Color is, there are actually diamonds that aren't clear. There are diamonds, I've seen diamonds that are yellow. Not personally, but like pictures of them. There are different color diamonds. There is actually a red diamond that's not very common. Color, and then clarity is another thing, and we could look up the definition. But basically, are there any little imperfections within the diamond? Then we have depth and table. I've got some little images to show us what those mean, but those are different measurements. The price, and then X, Y, and Z are actually, let's see. And so I actually had to look this up because I wasn't sure. But X is the diameter. If we go this way, Y is the diameter perpendicular to that. And then Z is how tall, I guess, the diamond is. And so those numbers are there. And we're not actually, these are definitely things you don't have to memorize or know. This is just so we can use this data set to go through the definitions. And then so those are what variables are. And then our data, well, this, and then I guess whatever's on the other 99 pages, this is data. And those are the actual values that get collected. So data is I was going to say the collection of values. So that's what our data is. And that's when it depends on whether you're being asked for the actual values, the numbers, or, in some of our cases, descriptions. That's data versus, what are we actually looking at? We're looking at caret, cut, or color. Those are variables. Now, whether we're talking about variables or data, we break it down into qualitative variables versus quantitative variables. And so if we take a look at this table again, let's see, there it is. We do have qualitative variables, and we have quantitative variables. Usually qualitative is super easy to pick out. And this is because qualitative variables basically classify data based on some attribute or characteristic. And a lot of times this will end up being a label, a word, but not always. So it's really, you got to be careful. There are times that qualitative variables might be numbers. And so I'm just going to put none of these that we have on our table fit that description. So I'm just going to put a little asterisk up here and give you some examples. So like a zip code, that's a number. So like my zip code is 37924. If you all sent me your zip code and we added those numbers up and divided by however many of you all there end up being, that would not be a meaningful number, right? Because a zip code is just a label given to a particular region. Another thing would be a social security number or any other ID. Your social security number actually tells the first three have to do with your location of birth. And then I forget what those middle two mean something, and then the last four are random. And so like for Tennessee, if you were born in Tennessee, you most likely have a social security number that starts somewhere between 400 and 420-ish, 419. No one, please don't give me your social security number to show that you did or didn't, that you do or don't follow into this. I would usually ask people to raise their hand. Is anybody born in Tennessee that doesn't have this? And I've only had it happen one time, literally one time in 15 years of teaching statistics, that someone has told me, I was born in Tennessee, but I have a different starting social security number. So, but here's the problem with social security number. If someone knows where you're born and they somehow got the last four of your social, they used to put that. They would put like asterisk, 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 dash, asterisk, asterisk, dash, and then they would actually put the last four of your social, like on your paycheck or something like that. If I knew those four numbers and I knew you were born in Tennessee, or I guessed or I just assumed that you were, then I've only really got to guess these two numbers. And then I have like 20, 21 options here. It wouldn't take me very long to figure out what your social security number was. And that's without using some sort of hacking computer program that could do it even faster. So that's why you want to keep your social security number secure. But other things, there's lots of other numbers that really are labels. So you've got to be careful with that. You don't want to just call numerical data versus categorical data. Sometimes qualitative data is called categorical, and that's fine. But to call quantitative data numerical is a little bit misleading because not all numbers are quantitative. All right, quantitative data, though, or quantitative variables, represent data that can be, that are basically that are counts or measures. So how many people are in a room versus, how much square footage is in a room. One of those is counting, one of them is measuring. Sometimes you can figure out what the capacity, max capacity for a building would be based on its square footage, but those are actually two different variables, two different things, characteristics of a building that we would count, or that we would, excuse me, not just count, that we would collect, excuse me. And especially right now with COVID, that's been a big thing. What is the max capacity for some of these different stores, gyms, whatever place you might be going into, and people saying, oh, well, we're at half capacity. It doesn't matter how many tables a restaurant has, it matters how much floor space they have. And then they have to use that floor space to determine how many people could be in the building, and then how many tables can they put out. So it's not just a matter of, well, I'm going to cram as many tables in here as I can, and then we'll only sit half of them. That doesn't work. So that's quantitative versus qualitative. Now this is something that, at least for this class, you're going to want to be able to identify without having to go back and look the definition back up every single time.